together.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like basically, this is just, and there's a GitHub repo here. Maybe I should show that first. Let's see. Uh, Oh, anyway, you can look at the GitHub repo at your own convenience. But basically, like the demo is, let's run full demo. So we create a patient. We can do MCP loops on it. We can de-identify the data. We can connect, and all of this is driven by these different functions. So basically, we're talking about giving access to an agent to be able to write back and use some of the R6 native functionality. So context envelope. So basically, like, hey, uh, you have a limited view of kind of like the patient for specific agent context. So agent context is very important. Obviously, we know for agents. So this is kind of like, okay, we're creating that um, for specific reason, right? So we're specifically giving agent the access to certain resources. Um, and then we have HIPAA safe harbor de-identification built in, so we can de-identify the data and the patient data. We have also human in the loop enforcement for clinical safety. So basically, like you can't you can't write back, you can't do things without getting human in the loop. So, uh, you know, we're writing back, and then if it's confirmed, then it would be able to write back the resource. So we have OAuth and using the latest kind of standards there. You have resource validation enabled as well, so that before we commit, the resources are um, validated. So essentially, that's what I came up with, and this was just like a quick ideation on, hey, what's possible if we think about FHIR really as a agent specific system and not necessarily something that is like, you know, typically what the way that it's constructed now. So
Hmm.
how do we make this from the ground up to be able to run via agentic frameworks. So that's
Hmm.
kind of it. You can come and comment on it. There's a GitHub repo. Uh, if I just go back in there. Okay, so here it is. And you can see the repo here, and kind of like see what it's covering.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, I want to love to hear people's thoughts.
Yeah, no, I think it's interesting. I'm curious about sort of where, what your motivation is here, to kind of, I guess start from a clean slate, um,
Yeah, just kind of see what's
target
possible.
R6, just
Yeah,
just kind of like an
our
exploration in code. Is that
so
that
our
kind of the idea?
R6, yeah, R6 is the new FHIR, right? We know,
Mhm.
and it's going to be the new standard, hopefully, because the same way R4 has been the standard. Hopefully, we're
Mhm.
going to transition to R6. So this is like using R6, and there's some of the new resources here as well, like the new resources that are there, so subscriptions and other things,
Mhm.
permissions and whatever. So applying the whole, last year is the year of model context protocol. We know that everybody's been building with model context protocol. So now
Mhm.
everything's kind of driven by that. And now we have the apps, we have things that have been kind of built from the ground up to be model context protocol, not just like a,
Mhm.
um, you know,
Like a
drop,
facade, yeah,
just a facade on top of a bunch of old APIs, right? So same,
yeah.
kind of trying to think about it the same way. So
Hmm.
from the ground
Hmm.
up. So that's kind of it. Again, this is like a day and a half, maybe like two days of experimentation and just kind of giving it those prompts to kind of think about it differently.
Yeah, interesting. Else have any questions or comments?
How would you use that? One thing is like, okay, we're trying to get our agents to work with the MCP server, work with R6, but um, where would you actually utilize that MCP server? So what is the use case, or was it just to play around and especially like have something to work against R6 versus all the other implementations which are R4?
Yeah, so I'm thinking this is like I want to be able to give this to my OpenClaw. My
Yeah.
OpenClaw is going to take this and it's actually going to be able to use and write back resources. And how would you even do all of that, right? And this goes through it step by step. Well, in order to be able to like retrieve the data, this is what I need. In order to write back, this is what I would need. All this other information in terms of PHI reduction, like I don't want to pass the PHI, like to be able to de-identify it on the fly, you know, and all these other things with OAuth and all the other standards, context envelope handling, human in the loop to be able to say, yes, this is not just an agent writing back, Gene's open claw or whatever. This is actually boom, somebody reviewed this and then that has that stamp on it. So there's kind of all of that kind of thinking in there. But this is definitely not like, something that's been super tossed a bunch of, rocks at it. This is definitely just like an idea. So
Okay.
Yeah, I think sorry, let me just comment, like, because you've been exploring PHR, PHRs a little bit here, right? And does this kind of grow out of that? I mean, I'm not saying this has to become a production level system or anything like that. I think there's a lot of
yeah,
value
yeah. So I
in
mean, like
experimentation, but
in the world where everybody has an open claw,
mhm.
in the world where you have your own healthcare agent, how is that healthcare agent going to use FHIR? Well, that's what I started with.
Hmm.
And
Okay.
I'm assuming R6 is what I want to start with. I don't want to start my new healthcare agent going back to a 10-year-old standard. I'm starting with R6, which is the new standard, and it has all the things that we would want on subscriptions and all the other stuff that's super super important. So that's kind of what I did. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I cut somebody off. Did somebody else have a comment? Sorry.
I think I need to maybe like show a demo with the actual healthcare agent, maybe using it, and maybe that would be the
Hmm.
next step of how this actually like the ideation, uh,
Hmm.
how to use it. But basically, that's it.
Yeah. No, I think it's great. And exactly the kind of rough demo kind of ideation, early stage stuff that we want to be doing. So thank you, Gene, for sharing.
Yeah.
I think that um like like I'm not super, I mean, I know what MCP is, but I'm a little fuzzy still on OpenClaw. I've been busy this week, so I haven't had a chance to I don't know, maybe get, some funding or something. I don't know, just send an email, I guess, these days. But I could see it kind of be just get put on like, product hat for a minute. Like it would be interesting. Like, I think there's some interesting question about PHRs that are small and lightweight enough that you can kind of control them yourself. Because, one issue with PHRs and trusting your data to a large platform is that you're trusting your data to a large platform. Sure, there's HIPAA, there's regulations and things like that. But it there could be, and maybe you want to comment on this because you were thinking about PHR, like what is it like a 2026 PHR to the future look like? I think that's an interesting question that I haven't heard honestly that much about. But one model you can sort of think of is that we have our own private little PHRs that are not owned by big company X, big company Y, big company Z, and we have our own um, compute resources or whatever, and then they can go out and to portals and to various layers, and they're all sort of driven by there's kind of a sh sort of like a platform shift a little bit um, in my brain. I think it's obviously not very clear about this, but the one thing about like PHRs is that they are maybe a little bit on this side of the continuum when it comes to personalized local control and storage, right? Like I think there's a okay case to be made for that. Um, so I don't know if your head is going in that direction at all
Yeah,
when
we
you think about.
discussed
Yeah.
with Josh Mandel that so the PHRs with us for like for 10 years, at least the idea, yeah. Starting from CCD and ONC certification, there was idea that the patient may
Mhm.
own the data,
Yeah,
that you can export them, and yeah, there was question why patient will do that, yes.
that's
And
what I
with
actually I worked on that in the Smart project
yeah, yeah,
way
and
back in the
and
past,
yeah,
15 years ago.
yeah, and with emerging agents, especially the personal agents,
Mhm.
there one more serious reason to own your data, yes, because you can give this data to the agent. An agent can do something smart like scheduling appointments, doing, I don't know, some consultations, maybe using some knowledge bases, yes, so helping you to with lifestyle. So for now,
Yep.
it's interesting because for now everybody may have a like a, I don't know, personal doctor, like AI doctor or maybe like advisor. It may be risky, yeah, but eventually that's what's really happening. Yeah. So everybody
Yeah.
asking questions about health. And that's a good reason to get back to the idea of patient-centric health record, where the
Hmm.
patient owning data. And I believe, yeah, that's maybe will change how we how the PHRs are really now treated. So because
Hmm. Hmm.
we have agent who can care about that.
Yeah, yeah. It's a kind of yeah, bring your own data because right, I mean, PHRs have essentially stagnated for 15 years. There's no question about it.
I
Like I
mean,
said,
PHRs definitely failed. Like, right? We can just
oh
say
yeah,
they failed.
yeah,
Nobody uses Apple Health on their phone, right? Nobody used all the things. I've worked for 3 years to create a PHR and they failed, right? So like
right.
the thing is, the power of it now, if you go into Claude and you bring your health data, which I did both on my health insurance data and I did all of my clinical data,
Mm,
the insights and the level of just cool stuff they are able to create is like order of magnitude greater than any PHR, right? Any my
yep.
chart, any of that, right? So this is why I think like that's what my idea was with this project is like to really enable that at scale and also like how do you make FHIR agent centric? So instead of FHIR
Mm,
having come from like solving a specific problem, which is, you know, web standards and software engineering principles and all of those things that where FHIR came from. And now, how do you turn that into agents centric first? Because all of this is going to be done by agents now, right? Your Claude, your OpenAI are going to be accessing all your health data as opposed to you personally are going to be going in there because nobody's going to be doing that anymore. And like OpenClaw and things like that, everybody's going to have a agent on their thing. That's you just tell it what you want it to do, go do it, and that's it. And like, how do you do it safely and securely in healthcare? Well, that's the big problem, right? So that's my idea. Love to hear anybody's feedback.
yeah, terrific. Steve, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I ran a PHR company. This is long before FHIR.
Mhm.
And what Gene's talking about is very true. You know, what we found in the usage, we had hundreds of thousands of people on the record, and the usage was kind of dumbbell shaped. There were people that were very healthy that wanted, there were like the quantified selfers. They wanted to track everything about themselves, their runs and their weight and their blood pressure. And then you had other people who were quite sick,
Yeah.
cancer patients and that were pretty active in the record. Then the vast majority of people in the middle, which for our customers, we had struggled to find value propositions. And only now maybe we can start to to do this kind of work with AI and agents. I was thinking through, myself and my family right now. That I have a couple prescriptions that I'd love to transition away from CVS to the Mark Cuban cost plus drugs because I know that they're cheaper. There's one of my kids has a health questionnaire that he's got to fill out for school, and of course they want immunization records, and there's all these little friction things in healthcare from a personal perspective. These are all really, really good, agent oriented tasks that maybe someday we can fire off and have them be done by
Yeah.
open claw or something else. I don't know what it's going to be.
Uh, yeah, great points. Alexander?
Yeah, speaking of like peer charts, I think I can show you guys what I've been working on today. It's like a agentic code, small peer chart. So let me share
Awesome.
my.
Fresh code. That's what we're looking for. Yeah, I'd
Yeah,
love to see it.
exactly. So hope you guys see my screen. So this is
Hmm.
like our small peer chart that I've been building for our company, internal stuff, right? It's not like yet published, but so what you can do here, this is like the page for the document. So you can upload your document, you can get summary, you can extract some like FHIR resources. So it's FHIR based. So we are using FHIR server as a storage. We are like extracting some FHIR resources. We are reconciling this with patient medical history. We are applying the bundles. We are storing provenances. You can chat with the AI agent about your document. You can get some recommendations with a link to our knowledge base. You can like have your health record, right? You can have your patient summary summarized by agent. You can have consultations with real physicians, real doctors. So it's for our employees, right? And it's all like copilots are everywhere for patient and for the practitioner. So we were thinking probably it might have some value for real people like we are. Like not only because of the consultation, so like you can get third opinion from the doctor, but like having medical history for you and your family. I can have multiple patients here, right? Summary that I could share, talk about the documents, about lab results with AI. So it's all like possible. So how it looks internally, it's all agentic coded, really a lot of code, a little bit of skills for agents that we created. It's all in TypeScript, so we want to publish this. It's not yet published, not yet open source, but will be. And also, like what we already published, like we started like publishing small pieces of small skills and so on and so forth. This is like I think a small example of similar stuff, right? So a skill that allows you to build dashboard. If let's say you have some data in FHIR server, and you are building FHIR native application like the HR I showed you, we created like a skill that can build a dashboard. If I go to the repo, so let me show you the skill, what it does. So skills is we started with MCP, but now we think like skills, agent skills, so they are more like kind of flexible and powerful, right? Because you can not only give one tool for the agent, but like describe a whole workflow like I'm doing here. So I say how to create a dashboard, like first create a view definition, then upload it to the FHIR server and call materialize operation to create actual view, then construct your SQL query, then like use this library for visualizing this. This is how to debug this stuff and so on and so forth. So all working very, very well. You can give it a try. It's like it's open source. And
This is already open sourced.
this is yes, this is open source.
Oh,
I can share the
amazing.
and like what I was like going to ask you guys, like what when I this like PHR, right? So it's actually, I think it's not so small. So at least we have a lot of code. And I built the first version using not using FHIR server as a storage, right? And then I intentionally I created the second version using FHIR. And I was trying to see if I see any benefits from using FHIR in agentic coding. Like we in Portugal, we were saying we were sharing the ideas like the FHIR itself as a standard might be beneficial for agents because it provides some, I don't know, common ground or standard way. If two agents, if they both know FHIR, right, it's easier for them to communicate, something like that. I was trying to see the value, and I think I really saw it. I don't know what you guys are thinking about it, but like when we moved to FHIR now, like like having these agented coded, right? Huge amount of code. I'm thinking like the more control you get over this, the better the result would be. And the FHIR like gives you some level of control already, like pre-built. Data model is like FHIR, communication patterns, subscriptions, SQL and FHIR. So at least I can be sure that all the data I created is a valid FHIR resources. So this is not so small. So what do you think, guys? Does it make sense?
Yeah. Any thoughts or feedback? You're on mute, Gene.
Yeah, that looks great, Alexander. And I had a similar thing that I built called Smart Health Connect. And then what I ended up doing is I broke it into MCP tools, and then I could call all the individual functions of the PHR. You could call from within, like Claude, and then actually display as an MCP app. So I actually had it working. So I'm like, if you could do that, then you open up the envelope of people that are could use this, and then you know access it without having to go to another portal or do any of that stuff. So yeah, I think Gino had his hand up for quite a while.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's fine. It was just before Alexander started, so I don't want to interrupt feedback on that first. So
Yeah, so I mean I think it's great and great to see that you guys are already open sourcing skills. I had a question, a little bit nebulous, but this came up internally this week. So I'll share my screen and kind of get you guys to react to this. Probably interpret it a little better than I will. But it's this kind of idea going on right now about like MCP versus skills. Oops, that's big. Um, so skills over skills over MCP interest group. Um, and so, I'm not super familiar. I kind of understand like the concept of MCP and the concept of skills, but it seems like the trend, in the long
I
term,
can explain it to
a
you,
couple of
Arjun,
weeks. Yeah.
very
Go for it.
quickly. Yeah,
Yep.
so that MCP, that it's usually it lives inside agent, yeah, and you have to put like JSON schemas and endpoints and describe to the agent when the agent start, it knows how to call MCP. And
Yep.
what the problem with MCP, that MCP lives inside agent, that MCP eating context, even if it's not used, it's eating context. And
Got it.
another problem that MCPs are not composable. So let's say one MCP is getting data and another can consume them. But to do that, the agent have to like run one MCP, get content, run it through the LLM, and pass it into another MCP. What we see now that people are switching to skills and scripts. So and essentially the scripts and skills can be loaded dynamically.
Got it.
And they can be composed. So for example, if I have a skill for, I don't know, GQ and curl, I can do GQ plus curl. Yeah. So I can load, I don't know, NDJSON data and then run it through the GQ or through view definition runner.
Hmm.
and I just have to write like bash comments. Yes, and you see how Cloud Code is good or Codex good in writing and combining comments. And so this dynamism and the composability, that's why people switching from MCPs
Hmm.
into the land of scripts and skills.
Hmm.
So it's
Interesting. Yeah.
much easier to distribute. So if you see now the Manus project, which was bought by Facebook, yeah, they have a site with the skills and the thousands of skills. It's really
Yeah, and
thousands.
like
Yeah.
if you look about OpenClaw has like a huge collection of skills now of like
Yep.
here's every little thing under the sun, right? And that was actually one of the security issues because with skills you can do a prompt injection. So it's like you got to weigh the
Skills are a prompt injection. It's not something you can do. They are literally a
they
prompt
are,
injection.
which could be a good thing or a bad thing depending on what you're injecting.
Yeah.
That's why
Yeah.
everybody doing their own skills, so nobody reusing skill. So that's what I see.
Well, okay. So what I do have is actually based on best practices. I've built my Skill Forge skill, which literally is an extension of the 36-page document written by Anthropic about how to build skills, how to use skills, how to properly use the front matter for the skills, and filled that one with additional resources I found to basically evaluate skills. And I wanted to wait probably until Sunday and then do a deep research on what the community has found out regarding security on skills from the OpenClaw community to add the security checks and the security review into the skill forge so that with every skill I have, I can actually do a skill forge review and get information on how to improve the skill and whether that skill is actually a security risk. So yeah, so this is how I'm trying to do that. And I also let the skill forge run on any skill I'm getting from any other site. Because a lot of these skills are really badly written, but they solve a problem I have. And instead of writing something on my own, I just can fix what I found.
Yeah.
Great. No, it's terrific. Yeah, we're I feel I'm completely out of date at this point now.
You are not. I mean, like, don't feel out
No,
of date. Like,
I'm joking.
I've been trying and playing around with skills since like the very first day they have been put into Claude Code, and have been realizing like the potential for skills. I actually distinguish on my own projects between skills and standards. So for skills, basically skills is something an agent is able to do and has learned to do. And standards are more like coding conventions, which we have in a certain project, where the distinction is that the coding conventions is what we humans agree the agent should follow, and the skills are more like the skills an agent inherits from other sources. This is just like my way of thinking about it, and especially because I've been working with something called Agent OS, which is looking at old source codes and then figuring out what are the coding conventions in that source code to
Hmm.
then distill what are the standards so we can reuse those standards for future development. So the whole learning loop of what you can learn from existing code that you might have and how to ensure that whatever the agents write is consistent with what you have written if you think what you've written in the past and the standards you have are actually useful to keep in the future. So this is just like some stuff I'm doing on the side in all my projects just to keep my sanity.
Can I jump in? I joined late, so I don't know what the overall structure of the discussion is, but I want to share just
No,
a
no.
little bit about
Yeah,
poking around with
please.
skills. I'll
Yeah,
say
please,
I've
Josh.
been writing a few skills recently, basically just trying to capture some of the work that I've been doing for myself to say, I want to come back to this later and I don't want to have to start from scratch. Let me just kind of encapsulate. But I've been looking at skills through a little bit of a weird lens, which is I want to package up a skill that is properly speaking, follows the conventions of what a skill needs to be, which is very lightweight. But I don't want to have to like install it in the skills system of an agent that I'm working with. I basically want to be able to tell the agent, like, here's a zip file with my skill in it. Go read it and use it. And that works like surprisingly well, even through like the web interface for Claude.ai. Although I have noticed that if you literally want it to load the skill from the web, it cares a lot about what URL you want to load it from. And for reasons that it doesn't articulate very clearly, sometimes it's like, sure, I'll download that and unzip it and take a look. And sometimes it's like, I can't unpack zipped files from the web. That would be a
Hmm.
dangerous security risk. But I have discovered that something.joshuamandel.com is a pretty safe looking domain to Claude.
Okay. Yeah, the
You're
one
sorry. Go ahead.
yeah. So one benefit of skills versus MCP is the progressive disclosure. So what I tend to do is have my skill MD very, very small, with the front matter, which contains all the information necessary to under which conditions do you trigger that skill. And then the agent is able to figure out the details depending on what is needed, because like the front matter and the skill MD actually has hints what reference files it has. So basically a skill is for me more like the entry point into the detailed skills that the skill actually provides. So this is all about context management and ensuring that the agent doesn't get confused. Because
That,
the moment I have a larger skill, it loads the whole skill completely into memory. And then sometimes the benefit of having a smaller skill versus an MCP is lost.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges there is like, when does it make sense to decompose the skill into small bits that can be independently useful? Or when does that just provide an opportunity for the agent to be like, oh, I think I need files 1 and 7, and it ignores files 2 through 6. And actually, there was something important in there. So like, it really depends on the domain and sort of what's going into it. I tend to be working on pretty small things where I'm like, if you don't understand the whole content that I've laid out here, you're going to be missing something important. Maybe there's a flow of steps that I want it to take the user through, or an evaluation pipeline that's going to proceed in a certain way. But that makes total sense to me, that if your skill is composed of more independent units that could be used independently, that you want to push them off and let the agent pull in just the bits that it cares about.
Mhm.
Yeah, I can share the funniest stuff about skills. So we discovered it even before it was called skills. So the idea was that wipe code some useful skill. It's so fast for me, to be honest.
Yeah.
So if you get the idea that you need, I don't know, tunnel skill just to show like your local version like outside, it usually take like 5 minutes to create it from scratch and then start using. And I really enjoy that. So you're creating few scripts, like you're automating some work and then putting it into the skill. Another interesting stuff about skills, they are shareable. So for now, there's an open skill spec, and the codex and Claude understand this. And I created my personal agent, not OpenClaw, but it's based on Claude SDK, and that stuff understand it. So, and I can share it all between like different agents and differently Codex up. So, and I can use the same skill when I'm in Codex, when I'm in Claude, and when I'm in on Telegram with my personal bot, and that's nice stuff as well. So I really can share the skills between different runtimes.
Great. I think there's like it'd be interesting. Now, see, I'm thinking bigger for the group, but like little, like like a little 2 minute intro to skills, right, for FHIR and AI. Maybe this is like we spread out a little bit and, take over the world in terms of our, education and marketing. But that's that aside, yeah, I just wanted to roll it back a little bit. I think this is an amazing conversation because I'm trying to get up to speed with skills. I think I understand MCP a little bit. But yeah, Josh, I wanted to ask you, in terms of, I know you've been doing a lot of work in this area, but just to ground it a little bit into like a specific use case, I know you've been working on EHI export or something. I haven't looked at everything you've been posting recently, but I will. But where you found this kind of this skill creation method loop useful practically in something you were doing, related to FHIR? or healthcare?
Yeah, I mean, there are maybe two categories I put them in. One would be like Nikolai suggested, like I write a bunch of scripts or develop a little process for something, and I want to be able to reuse it later myself.
Hmm.
So, an example there would be a couple weeks ago, I was working on a spec, and I wanted to explore some languages other than Mermaid for representing, structured implementation of diagrams. I was really interested in the picture language, PIKCHR, which is developed
Hmm.
by Rich Hip, the SQLite guy. So I wound up writing a skill that was like, here's how enough of the language guide for picture and, how to write and compile one to SVG. And like, I gave that skill to my documentation bot and I was like, or my documentation agent. And I said, take out these mermaid files and, use the new picture skill to write them in picture instead. So that was fun. And I didn't wind up actually using them. In this particular case, I literally just told Claude to write a really nice SVG for all these diagrams and went through like 2 or 3 rounds of iteration. And it just did such a beautiful custom SVG that I'm like, I don't even need to describe this in natural language because I already described it in natural language. And that was my English. And then Claude read it. But anyway, that was like a fun example of just wrapping up, my own set of documentation and scripts. But the other place where I've really been leaning into it has been if I want to package something so that it's easy for people to try it out. And 2 use cases here. One is helping people bring their own health records, like through Smart on FHIR, into an AI agent. And the other is helping people request a full data export from their healthcare provider.
Hmm.
And so for those use cases, the end users are maybe not super technical, but they have a Claude.ai account or they're running Claude Cowork or something like that. One of these skills enabled environments doesn't even need to technically be skills enabled. It just needs to be able to read zip files and then, have a terminal where it can run commands. So you could, do this inside of Gemini, even if Gemini doesn't technically know about skills per se. So they're totally discoverable and legible to any language model. But for those skills, it's mostly, I think about it as a distribution mechanism. So I want to make it as easy as possible for somebody who wants to try it out
Hmm.
to get from, hey, I just heard about this thing to, cool, I'm interacting with my agent and it's walking me through a set of steps that I didn't know how to accomplish before. And so that, for those, I've really been paying a lot of attention to like what's pre-installed in the Claude.ai sandbox and what are the limitations of what that UI enables, and just trying to work within those constraints to build the best user experience I can. And so like a simple example there would be I want to help the patient fill out a PDF form for their provider. One of the things they need to do on that is sign it. There's no built-in widget in the Claude.ai website to capture a digital, signature or, somebody's scrawling pen trace or whatever. But I can have Claude read my skill, present a web link to the user that says, click here to sign. And that opens up a web page that I host that just lets you draw on the screen. And it returns the result in HTTP back to Claude. So it's like a pretty weird separation of concerns. I wouldn't design it that way normally, except that lets you publish something that actually works in the existing Claude.ai surface without Anthropic needing to, build a weird UI layer like OpenAI did.
Huh, interesting. Yeah, skills is a distribution mechanism for it's I did not think about it in that way, but I could see that as a distribution mechanism to sort of less technical users or just, for convenience. It seems to make some sense. I'd love to try it out and explore it more. Um, cool. So we're coming near the end of time. So I
Let's
don't
give
know
a
if
chance to Gina. So I know he's waiting.
No, no,
he's
no.
sick.
No, yeah, no, that was just we were in the lull of conversation and looking for topics, and
Yeah.
Alexander went, and so that's why I said no, that's good. I was just curious about if people were, and we can talk about it more some other time, but
Yeah.
when you're looking at the PHR context and things like that, if people have started thinking about like tamper evidence and what's the valid source of truth and how do you get people to be able to trust that the agent was starting from a good state if you just have local copies of files and all these fun things that you start? That's why they're really second or even third order problems on some of these layers. But I was just curious if people playing in that space had started thinking about it.
Yeah,
Can be
in our case with Alexander, so we're planning to have a doctor who will review the summary at the end. So agent will craft the summary, but the physicians will review, or like some experts.
Yeah,
Uh,
I guess what I'm
will
saying
be
is
like, yeah,
if you're
human in the
building
loop.
around a PHR, that's information you pulled from somewhere else, and how can the doctor that's reviewing it know that those were actually the valid files and not tampered with, so that you get the
Yeah,
result you want?
but in our case, so because we now in distributed environment, not in US, so it's mostly PDF documents. And the physician can check the PDF. It's quite nice, yes. If you extracted all the stuff from PDF, but you can like PDF is still here, and the physician can check that it was properly extracted, and the PDFs like becoming the part of the PHR.
Hmm.
I mean, I think Gino's talking about like a larger source of truth, integrity kind of
Yeah,
concern. And
I get my PDF that's the source of truth, and my agent tells me, well, you're not going to get this medicine. And I say, okay, well, modify that. Give me a new PDF that will get me that medicine. And it
Okay.
makes an exact copy because it can do that, pulling all the right logos and doing everything nicely, and give me the PDF that then would get me the medicine I want. And so then the traceability and all these different things to figure out. I don't know. As we start getting into this, I'm curious where we're going to go with some of those things. So,
Yeah, we need blockchain with the signatures. Yeah.
oh
oh
no, no, no.
no, you have to put like a tip in the tip jar if you mention
Yeah,
blockchain.
I
And
don't. I
like
don't
this
have
is
a
So,
drink here.
Well,
the
that's
right.
why I was thinking about that whole thing that I showed at the start of the call about the human in the loop, Gino. I don't know if you saw that, but it's like you can't write back. An agent can't write back unless you have that human in the loop for clinical resources. Like that's what the idea was on that.
Mhm.
But somebody we're gonna have to come up with those standards, right? Because I mean, like to your point, like we are gonna start writing back and forth. Like everybody's gonna bring their own summary, and then clinical documents are gonna originate with the patient bringing them to your provider, not from a provider pulling them from somewhere, right?
Yeah.
So,
Well, it's an interesting attack vector for in a lot of directions because I can see this too, a malicious actor injecting incorrect files to patients. Like that's a very possible thing. So then
we've
you start.
been, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying, like when we had to test for the PHR system in Germany, we actually did exactly that. We used the PHR system in Germany to distribute videos. Works perfectly nice.
Yeah.
Secure, and approved. I mean, obviously that only works in testing when you do your own EHR records, EHR system. But yeah, I mean, you could think exactly about these use cases, and it's more a question of like how many gateways do the providers and governmental institutions put in front of that. So that's not possible or shouldn't be possible.
Well, I mean, I can comment a little bit about this because this was um, my area at NCQA was called information integrity, right? And it was really focused around the audit. And so I won't bore to tears about something called HEDIS Volume 5, but I mean, it's a universal problem. Like you could do exactly what you're talking about with paper, right? But I do think that there's a um, vast open space here. This is like the redheaded stepchild, I think, of a lot of interoperability and technology about data quality and data integrity. I know there's been some recent work in this space around FHIR, digital signatures. I know I've heard some stuff around that. Obviously, that's one part of the solution, but really, this is actually an important existing problem throughout. I'm more familiar with how US healthcare works, but data quality and data integrity is essentially kind of an unsolved problem. It's definitely an unimplemented problem, and the current standards are just laughable. Like they're essentially meaningless. A friend of
Okay.
mine who's an auditor said he called it audit theater is his way of describing it. And not to bore you to death, but like that would be an area I'd be interested in from a standards and technical and implementation perspective. That plus data quality itself, right? Like how is I'm thinking of institutions here, not necessarily individuals, a little bit, scales are different, but um, how can you infer the quality of the data over time, what kind of rubrics you can use. People are working in this space for sure, but I don't think there's no, I don't think there's really been a lot of particularly strong work in this space. I think there's a lot of areas to go over. So, maybe agentic coding, maybe that's my agentic coding homework. So I'll see you next week and it'll help me solve. I'll have a new skill that solves all this problem. So we are over time. I'm happy to stick around if you guys want to stick around for a while. But if not, if you guys want to close it up now, we can do that too.
I'm gonna head off, but pleasure to meet you and see you probably next week.